Greetings fellow Whovians and welcome to Timey Review with a video that I didn't expect to be talking about today really, and that is regarding the latest edition of the Radio Times, which came on sale today. Picked up my copy as it is celebrating 60 years of Doctor Who, all ready for the specials. Picked up my copy today, which I like to do. I like to keep some Doctor Who front covers from the Radio Times and other TV guide type magazines as part of my ever-growing collection of Doctor Who memorabilia. But I was really impressed and fascinated with the interviews that took place in this particular edition of Radio Times. So I thought I'll share some of my favourite extracts here on this video. Starting off just a few pages in is a interview with former Doctor, the 13th Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, as she promotes the recent series of Time, which is now on BBC iPlayer, and the drama One Night, which is on Paramount Plus. I'm really glad they did this interview. I wasn't expecting that in this copy of the Radio Times, and yeah, I don't think it's anything that I've seen before from previous Doctor Who Radio Times editions. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, that we have a previous Doctor and then a new Doctor being interviewed in the same magazine edition. Really good questions with some fantastic answers from Jodie. So for example, do you think loyal Whovians will follow you to dramas they might not otherwise have watched? And Jodie replied, I don't think of it like that. I hope every job is judged on its merits as a whole and not as an individual contribution either. Because the jobs that I've done post Doctor Who are hugely ensemble, Doctor Who also an ensemble. But obviously, if you're the Doctor, you are the face of the show and you are essentially the driving force within this sea of talent. So it's nice to hear that obviously Jodie was the star of the show in Doctor Who, quite rightly, but recognises that it is an ensemble team. You know, it's from the writers to the crew members to the other cast members that really what is the full driving force for Doctor Who or a series like Doctor Who. Another question for Jodie was, have you been able to stay in touch with your Doctor Who mates? To which Jodie replied, poor Mandip Gill probably gets a WhatsApp monologue from me every other day. We've got our group chat with Brad and Toss. We get to hear about all the cool things that they are doing, but Mandip's essentially my sister, and that's really touching that they still get to chat, because obviously in the profession that they are all in, it must be really difficult to keep in touch because they must be all so busy doing their own separate projects. But to have that, and I can imagine actually Mandip waking up with this massive monologue from Jodie. Another question from this interview, how are you feeling about the prospect of Ncuti Gatwa being the new Time Lord? At which Jodie replied, he's an incredible actor and his pre-Doctor CV speaks for itself. It's definitely in safe hands, but you knew it was safe anyway with David Tennant coming back. Now, I've said this before on this channel and I'll say it again. Whatever your opinions are on the Jodie Whittaker era, she has been a fantastic ambassador for Doctor Who, inside and outside of Doctor Who. She's took this role on, a brave choice to take this role on, being the first female Doctor. There was an extra weight to the pressure from that. Exciting, but obviously nerve-wracking at the same time. But like I said, outside of that, you just, for me, she's just like a fan like everyone else. And not just that, seeing her being a fan of the band Coldplay and just watching her sat on the stage during a Graham Norton show, listening to Coldplay sing Universe, that was really good to see. And obviously seeing photos and videos of her at various Comic Cons and how she interacts with the Doctor Who fans. It's great to see, and like I said, she has been a true ambassador for Doctor Who, and I'm glad that she was involved in these interviews for Radio Times. Then we have this huge article with David Tennant, interviewed by Hugh Fullerton for Radio Times. And yeah, part of this was kind of comparing David Tennant when he left Doctor Who back in 2009, 2010, at the height of obviously his popularity with the show, comparing that to when Tom Baker left as well, and or comparing that the two sort of most popular eras of Doctor Who was David Tennant and Tom Baker. and now obviously he's coming back. David Tennant, that is, obviously, that he could be tarnishing his legacy, and yeah, David feels like he's not going to do that, but never really sort of thought about it as well. But in this article, they talk about how it all sort of came to be in terms of bringing back David and Catherine and Russell T Davies for the specials. And David recalls the conversation we had about it was very casual. Russell and Catherine were talking about the notion of what if we got the band back together for one last special, but David would never do it. And I said, what do you mean I'd never do it? I'd do it in a shot. And then suddenly we were back for 3 in a row. What was really interesting about this article was what the original idea was for the 60th anniversary. It wasn't going to be the 3 specials that we'll be seeing in the next few weeks. It was actually just going to be one special. A bit of a flashback type of episode based on their time during season 4 in around 2008. David was quoted saying it would have been an unseen adventure from years before. Russell immediately had an idea for a story, which I'm not going to mention because I don't think it has yet seen the light of day. It certainly wouldn't have been part of an ongoing story, but I hope one day he uses it because it sounded great. So my immediate thoughts for the original idea for the 60th anniversary special is that, yes, it would have been nice to have gone back. It would have been sort of a bit like what Tale of the TARDIS is now, with previous companions and previous doctors. But whether they obviously filmed, I don't know if it's like using like deleted footage from 2008, or they would have gone back in time and recreated those scenes together. I think that's kind of what was implied here in this article. And as much as that would have been great to have seen, or probably to adapt at some point in the future, for I think a 60th anniversary special, I think it would have been a little bit underwhelming, considering it's been like a full year since we've had any new Doctor Who material. I know obviously Shooty Gatwa's coming up for Christmas and 2024, but yeah, just for a one-off sort of Doctor Who special, yeah, I think it would have been underwhelming. I'm glad we've got this trilogy of special stories. And speaking about these specials, David Tennant did a little bit of a hint of what type of doctor he's going to be, quoted by saying he is a magnesium doctor. In other words, he burns brightly but not for long, because at the end, obviously, he's going to be regenerating into Ncuti Gatwa. David was asked if he has managed to have met Ncuti Gatwa or seen any footage of him during filming Doctor Who for the full series, or season 1, I should say. And David said, I have seen a bit of Ncuti and he's magnificent. He's just got such an energy. He's so creative and he's inventive and he's funny and he's a proper actor. I think he's going to be great. And I totally agree. I've mentioned this before on the channel that yes, I think Ncuti Gatwa has got a heck of a range on him. Obviously, former stage actor and now sort of adapted onto the TV screen actor, particularly in Sex Education. If you haven't watched that already on Netflix, I do recommend checking that out. I can't wait to see what Ncuti Gatwa brings as the 15th Doctor. And yeah, I think he's going to be magnificent. But there are more interviews in this radio edition of the Radio Times. Next one being new companion Millie Gibson, who is going to be the companion for Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor, and returning companion Bonnie Langford, who played Mel in the 80s alongside the 6th and 7th Doctor, Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy, respectively. And I like this this pairing, obviously, with them two actually meeting up next year. I'll start with Bonnie Langford, as they asked her, you're reprising your role in Millie's first series next year. What was it like being back? And Bonnie replied, I loved it. Goodness me, I think the budget for one scene is probably more than we ever had for a whole episode. We literally had to have the sets put together with sticky back plastic and polystyrene. I'm really thrilled to be back because I didn't really enjoy my first time at all. I felt very frustrated and surplus to requirements. I tried desperately to be very earnest and so was pretty awful in it. it's lovely to come back and to fix that a bit, and fix that a bit, hopefully. I've never had an introductory story. First time, I just turned up, nobody knew why, and was suddenly just there with big shoulder pads. Sadly, a fair representation of Paul Bonny's tenure in Doctor Who in the 80s. Yeah, it was very, I would say, I think it's safe to say that she probably wasn't the most popular companion, but it certainly wasn't Bonnie Langford's fault at all. I think, yeah, she was kind of a bit hard done by with the writing. She was basically there to be the screaming companion because she had one heck of a scream on her. But that definitely doesn't detract the amount of talent Bonnie has. There was a lot of doubters when she was even auditioned and given the part of Mel in Doctor Who, but totally blew them away. And I think, yeah, like I say, she is a very talented actress, has had a wonderful career, particularly on stage. But obviously, you've seen her in various sort of celebrity type competitions, such as Dancing on Ice and The Masked Dancer. So yeah, I'm glad that she is going to get a fair crack, hopefully, in season 1 of New Doctor Who. They asked Millie Gibson, "You were just a baby when the show was revived in 2005. Was modern Doctor Who part of your childhood?" Which Millie replied, "I feel like everyone has a doctor that really holds a place in their heart. And Matt Smith was mine. I loved Amy Pond too. I looked up to her as a companion. It's my childhood dreams coming true." They were both also asked what to expect in the Christmas special and the new episodes next year, in which they both replied that new monsters, new stories, and you're going to love it. Millie particularly saying that yes, there's quite a few episodes that are very much like Doctor Who, but there are certainly some episodes that are quite dark and Black Mirror-y, which, yeah, jumping for joy for that one. I love Black Mirror. So if there's sort of like a family version of that and being integrated into Doctor Who, wow, we're going to get some memorable episodes next year. Another double interview pairing, this one being Carole Ford, who is, of course, the Doctor's granddaughter Susan, and the final female companion, if you don't count Donna Noble, which is, of course, Mandip Gill as Yaz Khan. A great choice of pairings to have to basically signify 60 years of Doctor Who. So whoever thought of that, props to you, well done. But let's have a look at some of the questions. So they asked Carole, "It's been 60 years since you first appeared in Doctor Who, and you're still asked about it. How do you feel about that?" To which Carole replied, "At the beginning, I resisted it. I wanted to do more work, not Doctor Who. I thought I've got to cut the strings, but you can't say goodbye to it. It's impossible. They won't let you." To which Mandip also interjected, saying, "I totally understand Carole wanted to cut ties because you want to be known as something else. But I think you can do both. You can be known as something else, but also be part of this family that just gets bigger and bigger." They also asked Carole in this interview that, did you think that Doctor Who would be still being talked about 60 years later? To which Carole said, "No, the only person who did was William Hartnell. He was the only one that believed that this show could go on and on and on." And I think that's definitely been fair to say. I know it's been sort of documented in the dramatization and Adventure of Space and Time, which is on this week on BBC iPlayer. Check out my review right now on the Time Round Review YouTube channel. I love this question as part of the interview for them both. Would either of you consider coming back? Carole replied, "I'd absolutely love the experience that Mandip has had doing it on a big scale with lots of money chucked at it. Whatever the regeneration is, the Doctor will always be Susan's grandfather. I don't know how they would do it, but I would love to do it." Mandip also said, "I would love to come back if it made sense. I don't know if that will be anytime soon, but I know I'm going to watch these new specials and be like, oh my god, I miss it." I would absolutely love for these companions to come back. I think Mandip, especially with Jodie, I would love to see them as part of the Big Finish audio adventures. I would love for Big Finish to get their hands on them both and really sort of flesh out their characters. In terms of Carole Ford, yes, please, we need Susan back. I think Carole definitely needs one more time on the TV screen as Susan. Could we see this as part of the 60th anniversary specials? We don't know what's going to happen, particularly in the second of the three specials, The Wild Blue Yonder. Could you make an appearance on there? Let me know in the comments below. And the final of the three double pairings in this interviews for Radio Times is the very first director for the Doctor Who story, An Unearthly Child, Boris Hussein, and current Doctor Who showrunner Russell T Davies. Yes, Boris Hussein, what was in that original episode, An Unearthly Child, that still resonates today? Boris replied, I never cease to be amazed at how it managed to take off. I know it was the Daleks in the next story, but what was the magic? Where Russell also interjects and says it wasn't just the Daleks, it was episode 1. I must have seen that 100 times. It's still so beautiful, so mysterious, and what's astonishing is that the show has never changed. And I totally agree. I mean, I've just recently reviewed An Unearthly Child. Again, check that out on the Timeline Review YouTube channel. But yeah, particularly episode 1, it's outstanding, you know. And if you haven't seen that episode and you're new to Doctor Who, or you haven't really watched any classic ones, please, if you want to watch obviously the full story of An Unearthly Child, please do so, but particularly do check out that very first episode. It's probably one of the best opening episodes for a TV series that I've ever seen. I recommend that you check out that interview in full if you can get yourself a copy of the Radio Times magazine. But I'll move on, finally, last but not least, of the very interesting article with the legend that is Tom Baker. Great photo as part of the Radio Times interview of Tom Baker, and obviously, you know, he's turning 90 next year, and there's been quite a few people worried about Tom's health, but I think he looks amazing. I mean, you know, bless him, he's 90 years old, you know, and as much as, you know, you want to bubble wrap him and make sure he's well looked after, I think judging by this article, he is still got that glint in his eyes, that little mischievous undertones that we all know and recognise in Tom Baker. In the interview with Matthew Sweet, I think Tom Baker jokingly sort of didn't recognise it was the Doctor Who's 60th anniversary. He's like, it's the 60th anniversary. I'm sure he said, is it really? You know, it's that just mischievous sort of tones that I've recognised when I've been very lucky to have met Tom Baker at a Comic-Con a long time ago. But yeah, he tells you how it is, you know. He's never one to sort of pull any punches, but what you see is what you get. And yeah, it's a very honest approach from Tom Baker that you know, I think some people might feel a bit threatened by, or a bit sort of not sure how to take, but for me it's just, yeah, enjoy the ride, because you're not going to get anyone like this ever again. Particularly quotes like, nobody failed as Doctor Who, did they? Well, we mustn't be ungenerous to anyone, but certainly I didn't. You know, it's just that tongue-in-cheek stuff that I love about. The absolute headline grabber from this interview, which is on the front cover of this magazine, is Tom Baker, I'm mildly contemptuous of the other doctors. And what they're meaning by that is kind of a sort of a elusive look at his Tom Baker's decline to be part of the Five Doctors back in 1983, and I've made my opinions on that clear on my review of the Five Doctors. Again, check that out on the Timeline Review YouTube channel. Told you I've been busy. So yeah, in this article, Tom Baker's quoted by, in terms of any formal reunion, I avoid them, you know, not with any malice, a degree of contempt perhaps, but mildly contemptuous. Inevitably, comparisons are made, and I find them odious. So just a few extracts from the interviews taken from this edition of the Radio Times magazine. And yeah, I do highly recommend that if you're ever able to get a copy of this, do get one. Read the interviews in full, because for me, not only do I like to collect them, like I said, as part of my ongoing memorabilia collection of Doctor Who, I do find these TV guide magazines a little bit of a time capsule as well. But yeah, this has just been a great set of interviews with various Doctor Who actors. Yeah, highly recommend it. Do get your copy now, which you can do in various shops Obviously, I'm not affiliated by Radio Times, by the way, just to let you know. But yeah, you can get this at various shops, and I'm sure you probably can get it online as well in some shape or form in the UK. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what has been your favourite interview, if you managed to pick up a copy of the Radio Times, and also what has been your favourite ever Radio Times front cover to feature Doctor Who. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share and subscribe. Hit the cloister bell for more notifications. Come say hello and follow me on Facebook and X, and do check out my other fantastic Doctor Who related content on the Time Wine Review TikTok page and right here on the Time Wine Review YouTube channel. Like I said, I've got tons of content that's just come out celebrating 60 years of Doctor Who. Please check those out if you can. Again, thanks for watching, and as a good doctor once said, something big is coming.